guys, in this tutorial we will go over two graphical tools that you may consider to visualize your categorical data. So let's get to it. We're still going to be using the same data file from the previous tutorial, so it's called credit risk data set. Just as a friendly reminder, so this is data that comes from financial services and is related to loans. Okay, so we have some basic demographic information on the loan applicant, such as the age, income, home ownership, employment length, what is the intent of the loan grade, loan amount, the interest rate, the loan status. From the machine learning perspective, loan status will be the target variable. So 1 means that the loan has been approved, 0, the loan has not been approved. Okay. The percent of the loan in term with respect to the income and other pieces of information. Okay. So in the previous tutorial, I show you how you can create a bar chart and how you can create a pie chart. Okay. So in this tutorial, we're gonna go over what is called a donut chart, a stack bar chart. So those are two standard graphical tools that you may want to consider to visualize your categorical data. So let's start by creating, again, just as a reminder, the bar chart. So let's add one cell and let's start as follows. Big X equals to PLT subplots, the fixed side. And then here we create the label first. It will be, in this case, I'm using the name of the data frame is DF, SDF, long status, value count index, and the sizes is that. So in order to create a pie chart, so we can use that command. So creating pie chart, and let's quickly visualize it. So it's very simple. And then we also add a couple of cosmetics. So it's that angle at 90. We also add colors. We use green and red. Get out of here, green and red. So that, and then we also made it explode. So just to highlight one of the slides, and we use 0.0.1 for that. Okay, so that's the pie chart that we use, or that we went over in the last tutorial. Okay, what are we going to do now is called a donut chart, and basically it's going to look very similar to this, but it's just going to have a hole in it. Okay, so donut chart. Well, I don't know how to spell donut or donut, so let me quickly look it up. Donut chart. Okay, done. It's just DONUT chart. That's it. Okay, so it's just gonna look very similar to this code snippet. So let's copy this, and then let's update a couple of things. It's just gonna be just a minor update. Okay, the minor update is gonna be here with this command, or with this argument, excuse me. So we need wage, that, and then we can specify here as a dictionary the width and the edge color white. Okay, so let's use that, and boom, here is the donut chart. So we can also look at this. So it's just like a white, it's a pie chart with a hole in it. Okay, so it highlights the labels and the percentage associated to each of those labels. This particular type of chart is very popular, especially in marketing applications. I've seen it a lot. I also seen it in business in general. I seen donut charts many times. Okay. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the insights or the takeaways that you get from the chart is basically the same compared to the pie chart. The only difference is now that there is a hole in that chart. And something that you need to remember, there are some specific group of professionals that they may be accustomed to some type of charts. Okay, so if you know that they are accustomed to, for example, to a donut chart instead of a pie chart, so then, I mean, it is recommended to go with a donut chart. Okay, and this is part of knowing your audience in some sense. Okay, so yeah, that's another alternative if you want to visualize your categorical data. You either could go with pie chart, or you can also take this option of the donut chart. Okay. Now let's create something that is called stack bar chart. Okay. So this is another type of graphical tool that would allow us to visualize uh, categorical data. But then here, typically, it's not going to be just one categorical variable at a time. So then we're going to be visualizing probably two categorical variables at the same time. Okay. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let's see. If we go back to the data frame, let's use, for example, long grades. Okay, so long grade, again, as I mentioned in the previous tutorial, so then that has to do with how risky the loan is. So if your loan grade is labeled as A or B, so then that means that there are less risky loans, and then probably they are more likely to be approved. On the other hand, if your loan is labeled as D, E, so then those are, in some sense, risky loans, and they are less likely to be approved in some sense. Okay, so let's prove that hypothesis, right? So that's based on just some general knowledge in the finance world, and let's quickly see if that hypothesis is true. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to visualize the proportions of loans that they have been approved and loans that they have not been approved by loan grade with a bar chart. Okay, so let's start with the following. So I'm going to start with ads. Yeah, so let's add the fixed ads. Let's use the same size, and then ads, and then let's use df, and we're gonna be grouping. We're doing a group by, group by. We're gonna group based on the long grade, long grade. What we want to see is the long status, and then we're gonna count them, and then we unstack, and we want to visualize that with a bar. Okay, so stack equals to true. Let me delete this for now. True. Okay, I think let's see what happened. Axis has no attribute df. Oh, equals instead of df. Okay. Okay. All right. So then this is what we have here. Let me comment this out. Okay. And I can also specify the fixed size here. Let me scroll to the right. Okay. All right. So when we look at long grade, so we have labels A all the way to G. Okay. So again, as I mentioned before, typically in the finance world, so loans that are labeled with A, so those are less risky loans. typically, and then one is loans that they are labeled with E, F, and G. They are more risky loans. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we will make sure that each of the bars, we're going to break down each of the bar as a part of a whole, meaning that we want to see the proportions associated to 0 and the proportion associated to 1 in each of the loan grades. And when you add those two percentages, they're supposed to add up to 100%. Okay, so we're going to be looking at each loan grade as a whole. Okay, all right, so let's add a little bit of cosmetics here. So PLT title, let's add here loan status by grade, by loan grade. And then next PLT, let's add the X label is the loan grade. Then PLT Y label. It will be proportion. So let me add normalize here. Normalize equals to true. What label? I misspell label. All right. Okay. All right. So then now again, each bar it goes all the way up to 1 or 100%. And then again, blue represents 0 and 1 represents and orange represents 1. Now let's attach the percentages associated to each of those groups. So then, it is much clearer to understand what's happening with that data. So for that, so annotating the percentages on the bar. So for that, we will need a for loop. So it's for example, being adds patches. And then, yeah, we can use this predefined. So width, height. Yes, we can use this predefined setting. And then we can see now the percentages attached there. So for example, so in long grades, that they're labeled as A, so 90% there are zeros and only 10% are 1. On loans that they are labeled as B, 87%, 83%, excuse me, are labeled as 0, and about 16% are labeled as 1. Now, one interesting trend that we see here is that as we move from left to right, so as we go from A to G, we see that the proportions of 1 is increasing significantly, right? So then here is A, on long grades A is about 10%, and then here under long grades G is pretty much 98%. It's pretty much all of those loans are labeled as 1s, okay? So, and this is a stack bar chart. I mean, we are showing basically two categoricals or two variables in one shot, right? So we're showing the long grade and also the long status associated to each long grade, okay? Yeah, so this is just another option that you may want to consider if you want to visualize two categorical data, two categorical variables at the same time. You can use a stack bar chart, okay? And again, here is just a donut chart. It's just something slightly different than a regular pie chart, okay? So that's just another option, okay? So that's all I have for this tutorial. See you on the next one.